What's up, Rivalers, and welcome to Marvel Rivals Guides. This channel is going to be your one-pop stop for everything Marvel Rivals, including patch notes, new characters, educational gameplay, and of course, tier list for every single update. The closed beta test not only gave us a bunch of new characters to play, but also a healthy amount of balance updates, and I know there are a lot of people playing the game for the first time and wanting to know which characters are strong and which ones to maybe steer away from. So today's video is a tier list giving you guys my thoughts on relative strength of each character. Now, reminder before we get into the list, every character is viable. Even if I say a certain hero is low tier, that shouldn't stop you from playing them, enjoying them, and getting good at them, because every hero in this game can carry games. You can succeed with whoever you want to. And at the end of the day, this game is very early in its life cycle. We are literally just in the beta, so seriously, play your favorites and have fun. The game is still very young, the meta is still developing, and as people get better at the game, this tier list will also change. That being said, we're going to start with the lowest tiers and work our way up. So all the way at the bottom is going to be my boys Hulk and Spider-Man. It's really unfortunate because these characters are very popular. You see a lot of brand new players wanting to pick them up, but they are just woefully underpowered, at least outside of the absolute highest levels of play. Spider-Man is just too hard for 99% of this game's player base. It feels like maybe 1 out of 50 people playing Spider-Man should be playing Spider-Man. Outside of his ultimate, this character feels more like a mosquito, a nuisance, than a real threat to your backline. And despite his insane difficulty when it comes to successfully killing anyone, this character was also nerfed in the beta, giving him even less health to work with. No real reason to play Spider-Man unless you're just trying to prove that you can make it work. Hulk is in the strange spot where he's a dive tank that has no real threat. I literally see people ignoring the Hulk when he jumps on them. He's just not a threat, especially now that we have a proper dive tank in the game with Venom, which we'll get into that later. Rounding out D tier is Black Panther. This has to be the worst character in the game to have on your team. They buffed him for the beta, but he is still absolutely terrible. Like, I would rather have a Spider-Man on my team because at least his ultimate does something. Black Panther does nothing. His ult does nothing. He dashes in and then he does nothing again and then he dies. Oh my god, why is he so weak? Moving up the tier list, we have some characters who are just still not quite finding their place in the game. Penny's odd design makes it so she's a mobile utility tank. You just kind of always see her running around messing up the map, but like not really doing much else. Her survivability is decent, her damage is decent, her utility is decent, but nothing really sticks out on this hero. And that's going to be kind of the running theme for C tier because these characters are maybe heroes that don't have glaring weak points, but also don't bring any huge strengths to the team. I feel the same way about Groot. He is a huge nuisance when he uses his walls intelligently to create choke points or block damage, but I normally just see him being as kind of a babysitter to Rocket Raccoon, since Rocket can jump on him and get significantly tankier. Now, this next one really pains me because he was my absolute favorite character in the alpha, but now I just kind of find him underwhelming, and that's Star-Lord. He is slightly more of a threat than someone like Spider-Man, but he's just so easy to pop. And now that people are starting to understand how easy it is to focus him, when he literally announces to the world that he's ulting, people just focus him so easily. You really got to get creative to carry games with Star-Lord. And this is just sort of an experience thing. Characters will move up and down the tier list as the general player base gets better and understands the game more. So yeah, he was literally S tier in the alpha, but he doesn't feel quite as good in the beta. He's still super fun though. He's still my favorite DPS to play. Up next in C tier is Iron Man. Now, I'm sort of okay with this character being slightly underpowered because he is extremely simple. His hitboxes are very forgiving, no crazy mobility, and a very strong ultimate that gives new players that dopamine rush. He's obviously designed to be baby's first DPS character, and that's okay. We need characters like Iron Man in this game. Massively popular, massively newbie friendly, just decent in terms of carrying games. You guys know how I feel about flying characters in general. They are a great addition to the game, but don't play more than one on a team. One of the biggest advantages to having a flyer is splitting the enemy team's focus, giving them something else to shoot at. That being said, with the game that moves as fast as Marvel Rivals and has so much mobility, it can kind of just feel like you're a sitting duck when you play Iron Man. Now, next up is B tier. These characters are average across the board, but at least bring some sort of highlight, some massive advantage to picking them, such as Rocket Raccoon's Revive. This thing has saved so many of my games, and it's very obvious when you're against a good Rocket that cleverly hides the Revive equipment. Now, some of Rocket's viability is tied to Groot because without a Groot, Rocket is super easy to pop, and he can't quite keep up with the raw healing output of the top T healers, but this character is good and pretty fun. B tier. Up next in B tier, we've got Wanda, extremely noob-friendly character. Now, people are starting to just realize how big of a threat her ultimate is. So yeah, in higher level games, you never see this big bombastic 6-man Wanda ult. People just pop her. But even outside of her relatively useless ult, her damage output is very high considering how easy she is to play. She's hard to lock down because of her 2 charges on her untargetability move. She never has to reload her left click DPS. This character is pretty good. And again, very easy. Next, we've got Namor, who is basically the opposite of Wanda. Pretty difficult and obtuse when it comes to his kit. He is a zone-controlled DPS with his turrets, but they give him a nice buff to his bubble, which now lets him move freely, so I see a Namor every now and then, and he's a significantly better character than he was in the alpha, and I think people are just now starting to understand how to play as and with him. Magneto is still really solid. I don't really have anything to add to this. He's solid. I see a lot of them in higher level scrims, but average play, he's just solid. And the average level player is who I make these tier lists for. So now we've got into the A tier. These characters have very attractive high points and are close to being the best in their class. These characters always feel good to have on your team. They contribute meaningfully to the majority of games and are just very good across the board. So we've got Doctor Strange, who has seen some nerfs with this beta, but is still seeing a lot of play and is just always useful. Like, I love seeing the crazy portal strats people come up with, and I think this character will get banned out a lot in higher levels of play. He is very good with skill teams and above average in average level of play. Punisher is just straight up the best DPS in the game in terms of burst with his shotgun and consistent DPS with his rifle and turret. If you just need raw firepower on your team, this relatively newbie-friendly character will give it to you. He can reliably win 1v1s versus any DPS, whether they're mobile or a flyer, it doesn't matter. This guy with a gun is just the most powerful superhero, turns out. Someone who I think is really getting slept on is Magik. She is the only melee character who doesn't feel completely outclassed by ranged DPS. She's easy to pick up, but actually has a pretty high skill ceiling, and her AoE sword slashes just like hit the entire team when she dives in. So you really don't even have to have great aim to make this character work. Definitely an A tier, and it is laughable how much better Magik is versus the other melee characters. Melee characters in general need a huge buff, but not Magik. Leave her how she is, please. Storm is also A tier. While she does have that same sitting duck weakness that Iron Man has, she has excellent sustained and burst DPS, and she brings so much more inherent value to her team with her auras. If you're interested in playing Storm, I made a comprehensive guide to mastering that character, which I will leave a link to in the description. Definitely check it out. This character also gets slept on. She is not the flashiest, but she is a very good DPS. Rounding out the A tiers are Loki, who did receive a sizable nerf, but still, this character is very strong with an infinitely high skill ceiling, so it always feels like you could have played a game just a little bit better. He's got a game-changing kit, and dude, he is just super fun. Not the most reliable healer in the game, but as an off healer that can seriously hold his own in the DPS department, Loki is still very, very good. And now we've got the brand new healer, Adam Warlock, who has some game-changing resurrection tech, both with a self-res and a team-wide res. This character is very strong, and just like Loki, has crazy DPS as well. His biggest weakness is against dive comps because he's very squishy with only 250 HP and not a ton of self-healing. So if you aren't positioning well on Adam, you're gonna die fast. And then they're just gonna camp your cocoon, and you're gonna die fast twice. But positioning in the back of your team like a sniper makes this character very broken. And staying with that theme, I feel the same way about Mantis. Her damage boost is cracked, her healing is very good, she is near top tier across the board. Mantis and Adam both have the same weakness though, they're just super immobile in a game with a ton of mobility. So yeah, positioning is very key on her. Next, we've got the absolute apex tier. These S tier characters are good in every game, in every comp, in every situation. We've got the brand new Venom, which if you've seen any of my Venom gameplay, you know this character is disgustingly broken. He's got instant and easy access to giving himself over 1000 HP at the push of a button, which gives him the biggest health bar in the entire game. He's the best dive tank in the game, and not only that, he has great DPS too. Huge utility with his knockup and his multi-person slow. This character is just so insanely broken, I love him. He is just so much fun, and if your team has a Venom and the other team doesn't, you're probably going to win. And finally, we have Luna Snow, who is S tier in the alpha and is also S tier in the beta. Her ultimate is so much healing, it's basically an immortality field unless the team can all burst the same person 100 to 0, which doesn't happen very often. Clean, consistent heals, decent damage, but oh my god, those heals are just unmatched. So there we have it, Rivalers. That's my tier list for the closed beta. Please remember, we're only a few days into this. I just wanted to give you my initial thoughts as a nice starting point for any new players wanting to pick up a strong character to learn the game with. The meta will evolve, the player base will evolve, and I can't wait to see how this game will continue to evolve. So that's it for today, Rivalers, and I'll see you in the next one. Hey, so I forgot Hela. She got nerfed, so she went from S tier to A tier. Bye.